Day, and we're going to go live now to Melbourne, where Fair Work Australia is handing down its annual wage review. The Australian Council of Trade Unions has been pushing for a $26 a week rise to increase the national minimum wage to $615.30 a week.
Economic indicators. The Australian economy is expected to perform well in 2012-13, with average growth in output and employment and modest wage and price inflation. Aggregate growth is expected to be at around its trend rate, with household consumption expected to increase by 3% per annum over the next 2 years. Mining investment will drive growth, with the non-resources part of the economy forecast to grow at a below-trend average rate of 2% over the next 2 years. One of the consequences of the strength of the resources sector is that it is driving structural change in output and employment. This structural change is not having a uniform impact on the award-reliant industries. Some are increasing hours worked, output or profitability, while others are contracting in one or more of these dimensions. The available evidence suggests that the Australian workers and enterprises are responding quite effectively to the changing patterns of demand. However, it is likely that the structural change that is occurring will lead to some increased structural and/or frictional unemployment. While the economic outlook remains sound, a number of considerations give rise to some caution. The outlook for growth is uneven, with the resources sector driving domestic growth and the non-resources sector growing less strongly. Global risks continue, most notably those associated with continuing sovereign debt problems in Europe. There are also conflicting signals in the main economic indicators and considerable volatility from quarter to quarter in important measures such as growth in company gross operating profits, inflation, hours worked, and gross value added by industry. These considerations make it difficult to form a clear view of current and prospective economic performance. This uncertainty and the diversity of experience in the economy have been significant factors in our determination of the level of increase in minimum wages. The relevance of the tax transfer system assumed particular significance in this review, and a number of submissions addressed the household assistance package associated with the introduction of a price on carbon, the other tax transfer measures announced in the 2012-13 budget, and the proposed increases in the superannuation guarantee levy. We deal with those submissions in detail in Chapter 5 of our decision. We conclude that we should not provide any additional assistance to compensate for the anticipated price effects associated with the introduction of a price on carbon. Compensation has already been provided through tax cuts and transfer payments, and further compensation by minimum wage adjustments would amount to double dipping. Nor are we persuaded that the degree of overcompensation or buffer provided in the household assistance package should be taken into account so as to reduce the level of increase that we would otherwise determine. A number of parties submitted that we should announce our intention to take the proposed increases in the superannuation guarantee levy into account in subsequent reviews. We are not persuaded that it is appropriate to adopt such a course. The proposed increases are not proposed to take effect until 1 July 2013. These matters can be the subject of further consideration in the next review. In relation to the general operation of the tax transfer system, we note that there is little consensus among the parties about the way in which changes in tax transfer payments are to be taken into account in the context of minimum wages. We would be assisted if these matters were given some consideration by the parties in their submissions in future reviews. We would also encourage the Australian Government to discuss such matters with the major parties in an effort to arrive at a consensus as to the specific effect any future tax transfer changes may have on the variation of minimum wages in a review. In this review, we have decided that the relevant statutory considerations favour a moderate increase which will improve the real value of award wages and assist the living standards of the low paid. The increase in modern award minimum wages we have decided on is 2.9%. Weekly wages will be rounded to the nearest 10 cents. The national minimum wage is currently set at the minimum wage for the C14 classification, the lowest wage level in the manufacturing award. No cogent basis was advanced for disturbing that relationship. The national minimum wage will be $606.40 per week, or $15.96 per hour. The hourly rate has been calculated on the basis of a 38-hour week for a full-time employee. This constitutes an increase of $17.10 per week, or 45 cents per hour. A number of parties sought the deferral of any variation determination arising from this review for employers adversely affected by severe and unprecedented weather events, in particular the floods in New South Wales. A number of employer associations also sought an exemption from any variation determination being applied to certain modern awards in what were described as the services industry sectors of the economy, with particular relevance to those covering retail and hospitality sectors. For the reasons given in Chapter 9 of our decision, we are not persuaded that those supporting a deferral have established that there are exceptional circumstances which justify an operative date later than that prescribed in Section 286, subsection 1 of the Act. Nor are we persuaded to grant any exemption from the increase we have determined. The general matters relied upon by those supporting an exemption relate to the economy as a whole and do not support differential treatment for the modern awards that have been raised with the panel. The diversity of experience within these sectors tells strongly against the grant of any general exemptions. We have, however, taken these matters into account in our consideration of the economy and in the decision more generally. The determinations necessary to give effect to the increase in modern awards will be available in draft form shortly after this decision. Determinations varying the modern awards will be made available as soon as practicable, and the modern awards, including the varied wage rates, will be published as required by the Act. In conclusion, we wish to express our appreciation to the parties who participated in the review for their contributions and to the staff of Fair Work Australia for their assistance. We now publish our reasons and adjourn these proceedings.
And we've just heard the Fair Work Australia decision on the increase in the national minimum wage. It has been increased by 2.9%. That's an increase of $17.10 per week and 45 cents per hour. Now, that will affect approximately 1.36 million workers on low pay, and the minimum wage was at $606.40 per week. So that decision obviously going to affect a lot of people.